New baby name series for you guys. This is going to be ranking every U.S. state based on how likely I'd be to name my future child after them. 50th is New Hampshire. First of all, don't like the word new at the beginning, and also don't like the word Hampshire for a name, so not a big fan of this one. 49th, New Jersey. My last name is Brown, and New Jersey Brown sounds like you got a stain on your new basketball jersey, so this would be so dumb. 48th, could be a surprise it's out this early, but Massachusetts. This is just way too long of a word for a child's name. It would probably take them a very long time before they learned how to spell it, and I just don't like the way the word sounds. 47th, West Virginia. You're starting to see already that I really don't like two-word names. Now, Virginia by itself would be okay, and West is alright for a last name, but I just think it sounds so dumb for a first name, and when these two words are put together, it just wouldn't work. 46, New Mexico. Again, don't like the word new in the name, but Mexico sounds a little bit better than Hampshire and Jersey, so that's why it was here. 45, we have New York. Again, we have the new at the beginning, which as we saw in part 1, I'm just not a big fan of. However, I like the word York a little bit better than Jersey, Hampshire, and Mexico, so that's why it made it this far. 44th, South Carolina. Now, Carolina by itself is a totally normal name, so that would have been much higher. But again, as you're starting to see with these, I don't like the two-word names, so the South at the beginning just ruins this one for me. 43, obviously for the exact same reason, is North Carolina. This is my home state, though, so that's why it got a boost over South Carolina. 42, South Dakota. Now, I personally love the name Dakota, but again, this one was just ruined by having the South in front of it. 41, I'm sure this is an absolute shocker, but North Dakota. Again, I love the name Dakota, but the North at the beginning just ruins it. However, I like the name North a little bit more than the name South, so that's why it beat out South Dakota. 40th is Connecticut. Just way too long of a word for a child's name, and I think it would just sound a little bit too awkward. I mean, I guess you might could call her Connie for short, but still not a fan of this one. 39th, Idaho. I mean, this is just terrible. I don't even need to explain this one. There's just no way I could justify naming a child Idaho. 38th, Wyoming. Now, first off, I don't like the way that this one sounds, so I wouldn't want to have to call my child this every day. But the main reason I don't like this one is because I just hate the way the word looks. I don't think you should ever put a Y and a W next to each other. 37th, Illinois. Now, this is getting really picky here, but again, I just don't like the spelling of this one either. I hate that there's a silent S at the end of it. From the time my child learns to read and write, they're going to have no idea why there's an S in their name. 36, again, for the same reason as Arkansas. Now, I know I'm being picky here, but it's my list, so I can do what I want. I just hate that there's a silent S on the end of this one. The kid's going to be confused at an early age. 35th, Pennsylvania. It made it this far because my dad's family is from there, and I guess you could call her Penny for short, but still, the name Pennsylvania would be terrible. 34th, Louisiana. Again, this one made it this far because I guess you could call them Louis for short or Anna for short, but still, the full name Louisiana is pretty bad. 33, the one you've been waiting for, Rhode Island. Now, it made it this far because I honestly don't mind the name Rhode because it's spelled differently than Road, R-O-A-D. And Island actually isn't too bad, so it's a lot better than some of these, but still, this would be a terrible name for a kid. 32, Delaware. Another one that's still pretty bad. I mean, not as bad as some of the ones we've seen, and I guess you could call her Della for short, but still, I don't like this one. 31, Maine. Okay, first of all, just look at this picture. That is absolutely beautiful. But still, Maine Brown, that sounds so stupid. Why would I name my kid Maine? 30th is Iowa. Now, Iowa Brown sounds horrible, but it made it this far because I really like short names, and this one's a lot shorter than most of these states. 29th, for the exact opposite reason, Tennessee. Now, this one actually doesn't sound too bad. I mean, honestly, it's kind of pretty, but it is way too long to be using for a person's name. 28th, again, the exact same reason, Mississippi. Now, the name Mississippi has a nice ring to it, and I really like the way that Mississippi Brown sounds, but at the end of the day, it's just way too long of a name for a child. 27th, Michigan. Don't really hate this one, but it would still just be way too awkward to name your kid Michigan. 26 is Vermont. Again, we're still in the range of names that are just way too weird to use for a child, but the word Vermont does sound kind of good, so that's why it made it this far. 25th is Ohio. Now, as I've said in other videos, I usually like short names a lot better, so that's why it made it this far. But when I say the word Ohio, it just sounds way too weird to be a kid's name. 24th is Minnesota. Absolutely carried this far by the fact that I guess you could call her Minnie for short, but still, the full name of Minnesota is pretty bad. 23, the exact same reason, is Kentucky. I suppose you could call him Ken or maybe even Kent, but still, the full name of Kentucky is certainly less than ideal. 22, California. I think this one could maybe potentially be kind of cute, and obviously you could call her Callie for short, so that would totally work. But again, I don't really like names that are that long, so this one wouldn't be that great for me. 21 is Colorado. This one made it this far because I love the way the name Colorado Brown sounds. This sounds like a guy who would be an absolute force during the Wild West days. Number 20 is Wisconsin. Now, first of all, I know every single person from there is going to get mad at me and say that I pronounced it wrong, so why would I name my child something that I can't even pronounce correctly? And second of all, this would just be a weird name to give a kid. 19th, Nebraska. Maybe, kind of, you could make this work for a little girl, but still, we have yet to reach any names that anyone would actually use for a child. 18th, Missouri. This one could be kind of cute until the more you say the word, it sounds like you're saying misery. So there's no way I'd want to name my child Misery. They'd be destined for a terrible life. 17th, Hawaii. Now, if I were from there, I could maybe make this one work. But to me, it would make no sense to see a little kid running around North Carolina with the name Hawaii. 16th, Florida. I mean, maybe this is actually someone's real name, and I guess you could call her Flo, but I still just don't see any way you could make this work for a real name. 15th, we've got Oregon. Not as terrible as a lot of these that we've seen so far, but we still have yet to reach any names that I would actually use. 14th, we've got Alaska. Could be kind of pretty for a girl. Alaska Brown doesn't sound too bad, but still, not a name I would ever actually consider using. 13th is Texas. This one made it this far purely based on the fact that you could call him Tex for short, and Texas isn't too bad to be a full name. 12th place is Arizona. Now, this one is a lot better than most of the ones we've seen so far, and I think it does sound really good with my last name. Arizona Brown has a nice ring to it, and you could also come up with some pretty good nicknames for this one. 11th is Oklahoma, another one that made it this far just based on how good it sounds with my last name. I mean, come on, Oklahoma Brown, you know that kid would be destined to be an all-pro NFL linebacker or lineman, so I like the way this one sounds. 10th place is Kansas. Now, if I'm being totally honest, hardly any of these state names would actually be justified to use for a child's name, so Kansas is just one of the ones that isn't nearly as terrible as a lot of the others. 9th place is Maryland. Now, the only reason this one made top 10 is because it sounds very similar to Maryland, which is a real name, so I guess you could kind of justify using this one. 8th place, Alabama. Now, I personally don't really like the name Alabama by itself, but I love how it sounds in my last name, Alabama Brown. That sounds amazing to me, so that's why I made the top 10, but still not a great option. 7th place is Indiana. This one can thank Indiana Jones for making it this far on the list, but I personally have actually never met anyone with the name Indiana, so I'm not sure how much of a real name it actually is. 6th place is Nevada. I think this could be kind of cute for a little girl. My only concern though, again, I'm not really sure that this is actually a real name, and people might judge me a little bit for it. 5th place, Virginia. Now, maybe this is a shocker because it's definitely one of the most normal names of all the states. But for me, Virginia just sounds like a 95-year-old woman who's about to die. Not something I want to name my baby girl. I've just hated this name for my whole life, and there's no way I would ever consider using it. 4th place is Washington. A very normal last name. Not totally sure how I feel about it as a first name, but Washington Brown has a nice ring to it, so it's not that bad. 3rd place is Utah. Now, I've actually met someone with this name, and it matches up pretty well with my last name. I think Utah Brown sounds pretty good, so this one was an easy choice to be top 3. Number 2, Montana. Finally, we have a normal name, and I'm a big Disney Channel guy, so growing up, I loved Hannah Montana, so I guess the name could have kind of some meaning to me with that, but this was an easy choice to be top 2. And if I had to name my child after U.S. State, she would be Georgia Brown. This was a very easy decision because this is the most normal name, and I think Georgia Brown sounds really pretty.